Welcome everyone to the Ontario Caregiver Organization's webinar series. These webinars bring together caregivers and subject matter experts to explore topics of interest to caregivers. We do this to support and engage chosen family, friends, and neighbors who are caring for someone. I'm Roxane Dion-Boudreau, and I will be your moderator for today. We began this gathering by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet on a virtual platform with people joining us from across the province and even from other provinces, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the land which we all call home. I am coming to you from Ottawa, and the land I am standing on is the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Crawford Purchase of 1783. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. As team members, we are learning about the lands from which we work, exploring how we can be meaningful allies and how we can support the recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their culture. If this concept is new to you, we invite you to take a moment to reflect on the land where you are. And if you are not familiar with that, well, we will be sharing an interactive map that tells you which traditional territory your city or town sits on. Our webinar today is called Taking Care of Yourself While You Care for Others. Caring for yourself is one of the most important things you can do as a caregiver. And we can't stress that enough. But often we know caregivers prioritize the needs of others over their own. In this webinar, we will identify ways to care for yourself. You will learn the art and science of self-compassion and how to cultivate it in your life. Tips for making and developing your own routine to practice self-compassion and mindfulness, and how to foster boundaries as a caregiver without guilt, anger, and resentment. Our speaker today is Laura Jackson. Laura is a caregiver, healthcare leader, and wellness facilitator. Laura obtained her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Ryerson University and master's degree in nursing from the University of Toronto. She is certified in psychiatric and mental health nursing with the Canadian Nurses Association and is a board certified health coach with the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches. Laura has been engaged in contemplative practices for as long as she can remember. She is a 200-hour registered yoga teacher with the Yoga Alliance and recently studied mindful self-compassion at the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. With a dedication to community service, she recently acted as a peer health coach with the Canadian Cancer Society, supporting women to reach their chronic disease prevention goals. In April of 2023, she was the recipient of the Honored to Care Award at Oak Valley Health for her work providing mental health and wellness support for healthcare workers and physicians. Laura has worked in various roles, including as a health and lifestyle coach, mindfulness, yoga and self-compassion facilitator, wellness leader, healthcare administrator, and professional practice clinician. She currently works in mental health as well as maintains a private wellness practice. So welcome, Laura. We are so delighted to have you with us today.
Thank you for the warm welcome, Roxane. Welcome, everyone. For the next 40 minutes or so, I will be talking about self-compassion and how you can use it in your life to support your own health and well-being as a caregiver. I myself am a caregiver, and what I will share are some of the things that I've tried that have worked for me, when I needed to focus on my well-being while caring for others. I will also share some of the research on self-compassion as a well-being practice. And I encourage you to try these practices to see if they work for you and if they resonate for you. And over the next several months, after this webinar is over, it is my hope that you'll use these skills on an ongoing basis, especially when needed. One of the benefits of these practices is that you can also practice them with the person that you're caring for, if this is possible. Both of you will experience the benefits, and it may even strengthen your relationship. Towards the end of the presentation, I'm going to help you to focus on developing what I call a personal self-compassion plan using the SMART goals framework. Let's begin. So we're going to start with a mindful moment where we're going to focus on our breathing. So as we start to settle into our practice, I invite you to find yourself in a seated position that feels right for you. And now you can gently move your head from side to side, left to right, up and down. You can also roll your shoulders to open your chest, just releasing any tension that you might be holding in your neck right now. And at this time, I invite you to focus on a spot in the room, or lower your gaze, or close your eyes if you feel comfortable. And now, allow yourself to receive the next few breaths, trying to let go of any moments that came before this one. Notice your chest rising on the inhale and gently releasing on the exhale. There's nothing you need to do to your breath. Just breathe as you normally would. And now I invite you to focus on your forehead. Now the tip of your nose, your mouth, and your throat, your shoulders, softening as we breathe together. Now notice the weight of your body in the chair. Notice your legs and your feet. And now bringing your attention back to your breath. Breathing in and out, gently release. If a thought or memory intrudes, simply acknowledge it and come back to your breathing. And now we're going to count our breaths, counting up to 10. We'll inhale and exhale. That's 1. Inhale and exhale. That's 2. Again, inhale, exhale. That's 3. And continue to do this up to 10. There's no need to rush. And again, if you notice you're distracting, know that that is completely normal. Simply bring your attention back to the counting. So now we're going to gently release this practice. And when you're ready, I invite you to slowly open your eyes and gently bringing your attention back to the screen. So mindfulness. Mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present and aware of where we are and what we're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. Mindfulness is non-judgmental, and it's a receptive mind state where one observes our thoughts and feelings without trying to suppress them or deny them. And we do this without criticism and kindness. Mindfulness is also known as paying attention on purpose. This practice has moved from being a Buddhist concept founded about 2,500 years ago to a mainstream construct. Some of the benefits of mindfulness include reduced rumination, stress reduction. It can boost mood and working memory, decrease anxiety, depression, and somatic distress. A mindfulness practice can also help to improve focus, help you become less emotionally reactive. It can also help to increase relationship satisfaction and enhance your insight. There's also many physiological benefits to a mindfulness practice. Some of these include improved sleep, cardiovascular health, improved digestion, and decreased pain. Scientists are also in the early stages of studying mindfulness and its impacts on the brain. They are finding that it may be a powerful tool in altering and strengthening key brain networks for the better. This is also known as neuroplasticity, or the ability of the brain to form new networks and pathways. Mindfulness researchers are also finding that mindfulness has been associated with neurogenesis, which is the ability of the brain to grow new neurons. So definitely an emerging area of research to watch out for. So as we shift towards talking about compassion and self-compassion, I want to start with reflecting on us as caregivers. How do we treat the person that we're caring for? So I invite you to put your response to that question in the chat. How do we care for the person? How do we treat them?
Hey, patience and respect, kindness and patience with love. The way you would like to be treated. Consideration and respect, compassion, empathy, love. Thank you, everyone. Those are all great answers. I'm sure Laura would agree with that.
I agree. Thank you, everyone. So yeah, the caregiver, we would treat our loved one with kindness. We'd be attentive to their needs. We're definitely supportive when they're in need. And we protect them when they need to be protected. And we advocate for them. We nurture them. And we forgive them when they're not able to be themselves because of illness, developmental stage, or circumstance. And of course, we would treat our loved one with compassion. So what is compassion? Compassion involves an awareness of another's suffering. It's benevolent, and it's the benevolent emotional response to this suffering with a desire or motivation to help relieve that suffering. So now let me ask you, how do you treat yourself? If we reflect on the list of caregiver traits that we just generated, how do you treat yourself? Would you say you treat yourself in the same way if you were suffering, struggling, or need support? You can maybe put your answers in the chat.
Hey, seeing some comments rolling in. I try to give myself grace. Some say with not enough patience and tolerance for themselves. Lack of patience and frustrations towards that their needs come last as a caregiver. that feeling of not being good enough sometimes. A lot of people are working on it, trying to be better at self-care. And I think that's something we can all work towards. And sometimes people say they feel a little resentful. Well, again, thank you everyone for sharing.
Thank you. So yeah, many of us would say no. And I ask you, if you said no, you don't treat yourself the same. Well, why not? Why are we not as compassionate towards ourselves? So this is where self-compassion comes in. It's no different than the compassion that we give to others, except that it's directed towards ourselves. According to Dr. Kristen Neff, leading researcher on self-compassion, with self-compassion, we give ourselves the same kindness and care we'd give to a good friend. So for the past decade or so, Dr. Neff has been conducting research on self-compassion, and she has found that people who are compassionate toward themselves are much less likely to be depressed, anxious, stressed, and they're also much more likely to be resilient, optimistic about their future, and have better mental health and wellness. The power of self-compassion is not just an idea. It is very real and actually manifests in our bodies. When we soothe our own pain, we're actually tapping into the mammalian caregiving system and triggering the release of oxytocin. Research indicates that increased levels of oxytocin strongly increase feelings of calm, security, safety, and connectedness. And it also facilitates our ability to feel warmth and compassion towards ourselves. Instead of just ignoring your pain, with self-compassion, we stop to tell ourselves, this is really difficult right now. And we also ask ourselves, how can I comfort and care for myself in this moment? And there's good news with self-compassion. It is a skill that can be learned. So there are three components of self-compassion: mindfulness, self-kindness, and common humanity. So self-compassion requires us to be aware of our suffering, pain, and misgivings, and take a balanced approach to our negative emotions so that feelings are not suppressed or exaggerated, criticized, or over-identified. With self-compassion, we're willing to observe our negative thoughts and emotions, being non-judgmental, with openness, kindness, and clarity. The next component of self-compassion is kindness. So self-compassion requires us to be warm, understanding, and kind towards ourselves. When we suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than ignoring our pain or criticizing ourselves, we meet these feelings with kindness. With self-compassion, we recognize that we're not perfect, and we will fail, and we'll experience life's challenges. Self-compassionate people turn to this suffering with kindness instead of resistance. They turn to it with compassion instead of judgment, frustration, criticism. And these things actually increase our suffering. And lastly, common humanity is a component of self-compassion. So everyone suffers, you're not alone. So there's billions of people on the earth. So chances are you're sharing the same feelings with somebody else at this given moment. This is what common humanity is all about. Frustration, self-criticism related to not having things exactly as you want, or even perseverating on how you thought your life should be. Or maybe you're experiencing that sense of loss of self, of personal goals, hopes and plans and wishes that is sometimes associated with being a caregiver. These feelings are, of course, accompanied with a sense of isolation, disconnection, maybe even shame and humiliation. You might feel like you're the only one, right? Self-compassion involves recognizing that this suffering and personal inadequacy is part of the human experience, and you're not going through it alone. Compassion, by definition, is relational and also means to suffer with. When we focus on our shortcomings without taking the bigger picture into account, we tend to develop this tunnel vision, a feeling of insufficiency and insecurity. And this is an irrational thought process, and it can be damaging to your mental health. These feelings are not your fault, and many of the things that we experience as caregivers are out of our control. So, some of the benefits of self compassion. So, those who practice are less likely to be depressed, anxious, stressed, fearful, emotionally dysregulated. And those who practice are most likely to be resilient, happier, healthier, hopeful, optimistic, wiser, and connected to themselves or others. So, in summary, and from self compassion researcher Paul Gilbert, self compassion is a non defensive, non judgmental attitudes toward personal suffering with the desire to alleviate and understand its causes. So, recent research indicates that generating feelings of self compassion actually decreases our cortisol levels. Cortisol is known as the stress hormone. In one study, researchers asked participants to simply imagine receiving compassion and feeling it in their bodies. Every minute, they were told things like, allow yourself to feel great compassion. They were also told phrases of loving kindness towards themselves. And it was found that participants who received these compassion phrases and instructions had lower cortisol levels after the study versus those in the control group. Loving kindness meditation is a self-compassion practice that focuses on reciting feelings of goodwill towards yourself and others. Loving kindness meditation has been shown to increase well-being, positive emotions, and social connection, and also decrease negative emotions. Another effective aspect, self-compassion practice, is to tap into your body's self-healing system through physical touch and sensations. This is also known as self-soothing. Self-soothing is a self-regulation strategy used to regain equilibrium and is essential to our mental health. So many of us are used to soothing others when they're suffering or upset, sick or afraid. Some examples of self-soothing include gentle exercise, practicing yoga, maybe changing your environment, taking a warm bath, or even lighting a candle. It's different for everyone. Self-soothing using supportive touch can be a source of comfort and reassurance, and it's a gesture of warmth and care towards yourself, just as a baby responds to being held in their mother's arms. Research has found that physical touch releases oxytocin, reduces cortisol, and also calms cardiovascular stress. Supportive touch is an effective way to demonstrate care for ourselves. Our bodies react to touch almost immediately, and if it's done in a supportive way, it can help us feel comforted and supported. When we're too upset to speak, supportive touch can help us calm and help us focus on our body versus the mind. If you're practicing supportive touch, what's important is that you make a clear gesture that conveys feelings of love, care, and tenderness. So I'm going to demonstrate a few gestures of supportive touch, and I encourage you to try them out. So one of the popular ones is putting your hands over your chest. So just folding your hands over your chest like the picture on the screen. And as you're doing this, you might want to close your eyes. The next one I'll demonstrate is simply just one hand over your chest or over your heart. See how this feels for you. You can also try just resting your head in your hand. Okay. Feel how your head is held by your hand and comforted. Another one is simply putting your hands in prayer posture. Okay. Just closing your hands together. You can try this. You can also try just cradling your neck, putting your arms around your neck. Maybe we'll try 2 more. So you can put your hand on your forehead and your other hand on the front of your chest, or you can rest it at the nape of your neck. Just feeling supported as you do this. And one more I'll demonstrate is taking your right hand and just tucking it under your left armpit where your heart is, and taking your left hand and just placing it on your right shoulder. It's almost like you're giving yourself a hug. So now we're going to practice. So I invite you to start to focus on your breathing. Okay. And when you're ready, on your next exhale, I invite you to soften your gaze or close your eyes. And now with care, I invite you to place your hand in the supportive position that resonated for you. Maybe it was your hand on your chest, hand on your cheek, maybe that hug or the prayer posture. So just put your hands in that position. And notice your chest rising on the inhale here and gently releasing on the exhale. And as you're doing this, pay attention to any sensations in your body where your hand is. Do you feel held and supported by your hands as you're doing this? And as you exhale, releasing any tension. And next, I'm going to recite some loving kindness phrases. You can keep your hand in the supportive position, or you can put it back down on your lap. And you can keep your eyes closed if you wish. So, focusing on your breath. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I calm my mind. May I be held in compassion. May I be free from pain and sorrow. May I be at peace. So I'm going to repeat these phrases a couple more times. And again, recite them if you wish. And if you're reciting them with me, try to hold them in your heart as you would hold something precious in your hand. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I calm my mind. May I be held in compassion. May I be free from pain and sorrow. May I be at peace. And one more time. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I calm my mind. May I be held in compassion. May I be free from pain and sorrow. May I be at peace. And when you're ready, I invite you to gently start to bring your attention back to the room, releasing your hands if they were still in the supportive position. And now gently bringing your attention back to the screen. So in the chat, I'd love to know how that was for you, and if you were able to find a gesture that was supportive.
Oh, this is great, Laura. Thank you. So people in the chat box are mentioning they're feeling very calm. Oh, geez, it's going so fast I can't read. Very relaxed, at peace. Someone mentions they like the hand under the underarm and over the shoulder. Um, they feel connected to themselves. Um, Soothing, calming, lovely. Somebody mentions that her shoulders are no longer up to her ears, that
Oh,
they're going down. Great comments, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing.
thank you. Thank you, everyone. So, how do you or will you offer self compassion towards yourself or self soothe? This is what I like to refer to as the art of self compassion. The beauty of this practice is that there are so many things you can do and experiment with and try and practice what works for you. These are some ideas that I came up with. So, spending time doing the things I truly love, practicing mindfulness, recognizing and appreciating and focusing on my strengths, noticing and challenging negative self talk, letting go of the need for outside validation, taking care of my body, moving my body, staying hydrated, reflecting on the shared experience. So that's the common humanity aspect, reaching out, setting boundaries, and of course, practicing forgiveness and letting go. So, putting this another way, what nurtures you? What fills you up? It's different for all of us. So, researchers Dr. Neff and Dr. Germer stress that the fundamental question of self compassion is, what do I need in this moment? They also point out that self compassion is not self pity, it's not self indulgence, and it's not self esteem. So everyone's experience of caregiving is different, as are the feelings that go along with it. And applying self compassion and experiencing the benefits may take time and take practice. As caregivers, we may find ourselves in situations that cause positive and negative emotions. This is normal, and it's important to remember that our emotions are sometimes out of our control. How you feel is how you feel. There's no right or wrong, and they're not to be judged, your feelings. I want to acknowledge that the experience of being a caregiver can be like a roller coaster, right? A roller coaster of emotions. On one hand, caregiving can come with joy, personal growth, fulfillment, an appreciation for health and well being. It can also come with stronger relationships, gratitude, pride, honor, and love. And also, it can come with anxiety, guilt, frustration, anger, even resentment, hurt, isolation, grief, and sadness. Practicing acceptance and forgiveness and letting go can help with these feelings, especially feelings of guilt. Maybe you think you're not doing enough as a caregiver. These practices might also help with anger. Maybe you're angry at the healthcare system or the fact that your life is not the life that you expected it to be. Or perhaps you have feelings of resentment. You know that these are normal. Maybe you can't let go of the fact that you had to put your life on hold to be a caregiver. If you're overwhelmed, I want to introduce you to a practice called RAIN. This was developed by Dr. Tara Brach, and it's also a self-compassion practice. So RAIN encourages us to first pause. And when we're experiencing suffering, R stands for recognize what's going on. So recognize and consciously acknowledge your thoughts and behaviors in that moment. What's affecting you in that moment? A stands for allow the experience to be there just as is. No fixing, no judging. This helps to deepen our awareness. And I is investigate with kindness. So ask yourself, what most wants your attention in this moment? How are you experiencing it in your body? And try to bring your attention away from conceptualizing the experience. And lastly, N stands for nurture with self-compassion. How are you going to soothe yourself in this moment? So if you're struggling, I encourage you to remember RAIN and also to reach out. So next, I'm going to share a wellness prescription. And this is based on the research of Dr. Shawn Achor. Dr. Achor is a happiness researcher whose research has shown that practicing these things consistently for 21 days results in improved well-being. The first practice is gratitude. So gratitude is consistently associated with greater well-being, and it involves expressing thanks or appreciation for something from a gift to life itself. One time a day, practice gratitude. One simple gratitude practice that I'll share is called 3 Good Things. So essentially what you need is a notebook, a piece of paper, or a journal. And before you go to bed, or in fact, any time of the day, write down 3 good things that you're grateful for. And these things don't have to be grand. They can be the little things. Something as simple as your cup of coffee, a smile from a friend or a stranger, or watching the sunset. The next part of the prescription is to walk. So there's no doubt that physical activity helps us feel better and has many benefits to our health. The Canadian 24-hour physical activity movement guidelines recommends that adults get 150 minutes, of physical activity every week, 150 minutes. For Dr. Achor, in the context of improving well-being, his research has shown that engaging in a 15-minute brisk walk 4 to 5 times a week for 21 days can improve levels of well-being. And mindful breathing, practicing this for just 2 minutes a day. Like we did at the start of this webinar, if practiced consistently, it has also been shown to increase accuracy, focus, well-being, and decrease stress. And the last part of the prescription is connection. Intentionally connecting with someone in a positive way, praising them, for example, or just thanking them for just 2 minutes a day for 21 days has been shown to improve well-being. This can be in the form of verbally talking to someone or even emailing them. And why does this help? So this is all about the power of social connection. Social connection is a predictor of longer life. It promotes faster recovery from disease. It's also associated with better and improved well-being. And it also helps us find a sense of purpose and meaning. And if you don't know where to start with all of this, a good place to start is with your values. Sometimes as caregivers, we may lose sense of ourselves. We may lose sight of who we are, what we like, what motivates us, and maybe what is important to us as we step into the caregiver role. Your values are your why. So these are your standards of behavior. They influence your decisions, determine our priorities. Values inform our personal and professional and political behavior. They guide our actions, and they're a judgment of what's important to us in life. So how do you discover or rediscover your values? Start by asking yourself when you were most proud, the happiest, most fulfilled and satisfied. This can be something that the role of caregiver has actually revealed to you. So now that we've explored self-compassion and tools to support this practice, we can start to create a self-compassion plan. And it could be simple as starting with just one thing for today. It doesn't have to be an elaborate plan. So you can start by asking yourself these questions. See if any resonate for you and build from them. Today, I will reduce stress by. Today, I will choose foods that nurture me. They are. Today, I will let go of. Today, I will forgive myself or others for. Something that I will do today for physical activity is. Okay, so these might get you started. And of course, I recognize that it may be very challenging to even start with all the priorities around you and being a caregiver. If you're finding that you have no time for yourself it may be important to revisit your boundaries and ask yourself, how strong are my boundaries? Why can't I put myself at the forefront? You can start by asking yourself, what can you do to strengthen them so you can live a healthier life and in turn benefit the person you're caring for? If you're looking at revisiting your boundaries, I encourage you to start by defining your limits or redefining your limits, openly communicating them to people in your life so they're known, reminding people if they need a reminder of your boundaries. And of course, do not be afraid to say no to things that don't serve you. And fundamentally, take care of yourself. Oops. So, in building a self-compassion or wellness plan for yourself, I encourage you to start with the SMART goals framework. And using a SMART goals framework, this can contribute to your success in achieving your goal. So, your goals should be specific, okay? They should be measurable. They should be achievable. They should be relevant. And they should be time bound. So that's the SMART framework. And if you're embarking on a new wellness plan or a self-compassion plan, I want you to always remember it is a process to go slowly, to prioritize and plan, to take small, actionable steps, right? Little steps count, bit by bit. You might also want to try finding an accountability partner, somebody who can champion you. Maybe it's a sibling, a best friend, a therapist, or a coach. And also, of course, celebrate your success. So I want to leave you with a quote from Jack Kornfield. If your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete. Thank you. My contact information I'll share.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you.
I think I speak for everyone. I think that just your voice and your presence alone is very soothing.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for all this wonderful information. And thank you to everyone for being so active in the chat box. So we will move it along to our question period. Okay, so one of the first questions that we received was, what is somatic distress?
So somatic refers to feeling it in your body, right? So somatic is body. So for example, you might be feeling your heart beating really fast. You might feel discomfort in your stomach, tension in your neck. So somatic refers to feeling something in your body.
Thank you so much, Laura. Another question is, so it starts off by a comment. So I take every course and activity for my husband because I doubt my ability to care for him properly. I never feel I'm doing enough. How can I fix that feeling?
Yeah, that's something that I know a lot of caregivers feel, right? Is that sense you wish you could do more. Part of it is practicing some of these contemplative practices that we went through today. Acceptance is one that I've worked with quite a bit. And simply accepting that you're doing everything that you possibly can within your control. Over time, it does get easier. It is certainly a practice. So that feeling of not doing enough, I'd say looking back to the 3 components of self-compassion can also help, right? So when you're having that feeling, you're aware of it, right? You've noticed it. You're going to now turn to that feeling with kindness, right? So not going into any negative self-talk or criticism. And then also, again, remembering common humanity, that other people feel this desire that they wish they were doing more. But you simply can't, right?
Thank you, Laura. we've had a couple of questions and comments relating to, am I the only one who really dislikes being told you're so strong, right? I think that that's something that I know I can comment on, that it's something that I hear often from caregivers as well is, and because you didn't choose to be strong, right? You didn't choose to necessarily be in a caregiving role. So I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add on to that comment, Laura.
Yeah, I mean, when I talk about, some of the feelings and experiences, they're out of your control, and it's really something you're confronted with, right? Being a caregiver, it shows up, right? And you have to respond. So those comments definitely resonate with me as well. Thank you. Yeah.
Another question was, can you discuss the power of crying?
Yeah. So what I would say, you know, if you want to share your experience of using this as a tool for comfort, crying is a good way to simply release your emotions, right? Not everybody cries. There's nothing wrong with crying. It's a good way to release your emotions and let go. Some people attach shame to crying, but definitely no criticism with a practice that nurtures you and helps you to feel some kind of release.
Thanks, Laura. So we still have time for questions. Um, what do you advise when a person you're caring for turns anger towards you? Is there something that you would suggest that could help with that?
So I would again turn to the practice of rain that I described in the slides. So again, a self-compassion practice that really helps you to understand what's going on in the moment, right? So recognizing what's going on. Um, Also acknowledging that the anger, you may be the target of the anger, it's pointed at you, but it really isn't because of you, right? It might be because the person is suffering and struggling. Maybe they're in pain, or they're feeling a great deal of distress and it's coming right at you. So I would say going back to the practice of rain, trying that and just gently walking through that as you're having that experience, that could also really help.
Thank you, Laura. Um, and so I see a comment here in the chat box as well that, there's a lot of self-compassion practices and you've explored some of these with us. But are there times where people do need to access some more formal counseling, mental health support, if they're really having persistent feelings of anger and distress?
Absolutely. Yeah, counseling, therapy, coaching, reaching out is crucial, right? If you're struggling, these practices can certainly help and support you along your caregiving journey. But if you're struggling, you notice a change in your behavior, people are noticing you're not yourself, definitely reaching out is crucial. Accessing professional help and support.
Another person mentions that when she cries, or when this person cries, um, they throw up because of that. So is there something that you would recommend? Maybe, trying those breathing practices or deep breathing to try and calm down the system?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend you can try these practices, but I would also say if you're actually throwing up physically, maybe check with your doctor just to make sure nothing else is going on. Okay. And if everything is clear, you can try these practices even in advance of distress. That's when they're actually most beneficial, is if you practice them every day. It's almost like building a muscle, right? So if you lift a weight or weights for a few days, you're not going to see the benefits. It's the same with these practices. So practicing them day by day, right? So that could potentially help to prevent some of the emotional distress and dysregulation, potentially what you're describing. But as I said, if it's coming to you're actually throwing up, I would check with your doctor as well.
I can't challenge my negative thoughts no matter how I try. Would you have a simple practical tip I could try?
Yeah, one is it may not work, but you can simply again try the rain practice, or when you notice that those thoughts are coming up, just say stop. Just articulate to yourself, stop, right? That does work, I know, for some people, or maybe looking at different self-soothing techniques to sort of shift your focus, right? So one thing I mentioned is to go outside, and to elaborate on that, sometimes just changing your environment can give you that fresh mindset and clear your mind, right? Or just changing the stimulus in your room, maybe turning down the lights, if that soothes you, having a warm bath, that can also help interrupt those thoughts. Try it, right?
Thank you. I think we have time for a couple more questions. How do you find balance with other people who are caregiving, maybe other siblings or other family members? So, this person mentions they've done family meetings with social workers, and are there any other ideas? So, is there a way maybe to calmly, compassionately express our feelings and maybe our what we find challenging about our siblings or family not helping in our situation?
It's a good question, right? It can bring up a lot of additional stress, right? I'd say again, simply doing any of the self-soothing exercises to regulate your own emotions before you interact with your family, knowing that it might trigger you, that could also help. And also working on building your relationships and communication with them if you haven't already. Clearly articulating to them, as I talked about with boundaries, letting them know your limits, right? Letting them know that you need support to help take so and so to an appointment or whatever it is. So trying to carve out those boundaries as well with your family could help.
Thank you, Laura. Absolutely wonderful information. I know that one of the takeaways for me, and I hope for some of you at home as well, is that really taking care of yourself, self-care, although we would love to have hours to complete self-care and really focus on ourselves, it doesn't have to take hours, right? As you've shown through your presentation, there's simple things that we can do in 2 minutes time.
Yes.
Even just the wonderful breathing exercise that you demonstrated at the beginning, this just brings you right down, just really lowers your stress level immediately. So thank you so much. I really, really hope that a lot of you at least have one strategy to take away from today. And for those who are asking, yes, you will absolutely receive a link to the recording of the presentation, as well as a copy of Laura's slide deck. So thank you so much, Laura. We know that overcoming the challenges and barriers to taking care of yourself when caregiving is really never easy. And you've shared with us just really helpful information and suggestion to really help support us as caregivers and help us towards our own self-care. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone at home who were able to join us today. And yes, there is some bad weather here in Ottawa, so take care, everyone, and be safe.